Markent Mantra, Markent Mantra, Markent Mantra, Markent Mantra, Markent Mantra, Markent Mantra.
Namaskar and welcome to Market Mantra, the program in which we give you a complete update on the economic, business and stock market news of the day. Well, I'm your anchor, Lalema Aneja Dank, and with me is my co-anchor, Manoj Pathak.
नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र के ताजा अंक में आपका स्वागत है। आधे घंटे के इस कार्यक्रम में हमेशा की तरह हम देश और दुनिया की चुनी हुई कारोबारी, आर्थिक और शेयर बाजार से संबंधित ताजा खबरों को लेकर हाजिर हैं। हमारे साथ खबरों पर चर्चा के लिए आज स्टूडियो में आमंत्रित हैं आर्थिक मामलों के वरिष्ठ विशेषज्ञ सिद्धार्थ सिंह। सिद्धार्थ जी, कार्यक्रम में आपका स्वागत है।
नमस्कार।
आइए शुरुआत करते हैं अंग्रेजी में हेडलाइन से, जिसे लेकर मौजूद हैं लालिमा अनेजा डैंग।
Thank you, Manoj. Let's begin with the headlines. Yes, Cabinet approves increase in MSP for 14 Kharif crops for marketing season 2025-26. Cabinet also approves continuation of interest subvention component under modified interest subvention scheme for farmers. And benchmark domestic equity indices end in negative territory for the second straight session. Sensex slips over 200 points. Nifty closes at 24,752.
कैबिनेट की आर्थिक मामलों की समिति ने मार्केटिंग सीजन 2025-26 के लिए 14 खरीफ फसलों के न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य बढ़ाने की मंजूरी दी। कैबिनेट ने किसानों के लिए MISS ब्याज योजना को भी जारी रखने पर सहमति दी और घरेलू शेयर बाजार में लगातार दूसरे सत्र में आज हुई गिरावट। प्रमुख सूचकांक घाटे के साथ हुए बंद। सेंसेक्स 200 अंक से अधिक लुढ़का। निफ्टी 24,752 दर्ज हुआ। आज की सबसे प्रमुख खबर में रही कैबिनेट की आर्थिक मामलों की समिति की बैठक की जो विवरण आए हैं वो आज के सबसे अहम फैसले माने जा रहे हैं। और आर्थिक मामलों की मंत्रिमंडलीय समिति ने किसानों के लिए विशेष रूप से एक खुशखबरी दी है। मंत्रिमंडलीय समिति ने 14 खरीफ फसलों के न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य MSP में वृद्धि को मंजूरी दे दी। सूचना और प्रसारण मंत्री अश्विनी वैष्णव ने आज नई दिल्ली में कहा कि सरकार ने मार्केटिंग सीजन 2025-26 के लिए खरीफ फसलों के MSP में वृद्धि की है ताकि किसानों को उनकी उपज के लिए लाभकारी मूल्य सुनिश्चित किया जा सके। पिछले वर्ष की तुलना में MSP में सबसे अधिक वृद्धि तिल के लिए 820 रुपए प्रति क्विंटल, रागी के लिए 596 रुपए प्रति क्विंटल, कपास के लिए 589 रुपए प्रति क्विंटल और तिल के लिए 579 रुपए प्रति क्विंटल की सिफारिश की गई है। इसके अलावा और भी कई मंत्रिमंडलीय फैसले हैं, लेकिन हम किसानों के लिए ही शुरुआत चर्चा की करना चाहेंगे और आपसे समझना चाहेंगे कि कुल मिलाकर किसानों के लिए दो प्रमुख फैसले हुए। एक तो न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य में वृद्धि और दूसरा उनके लिए जो ऋण सहायता योजना है उसको 1 वर्ष के लिए और जारी किया गया है। क्या टिप्पणी करना चाहेंगे इस पर?
नहीं, देखिए मनोज जी, जब से नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार आई 2014 में, तभी ये तय हुआ था कि जो किसानों की जो आय है उसको दुगनी करना है और उसका एक प्रमुख जो तरीका है वो ये था कि जो आपने बोला न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य या मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस जो बोलते हैं उसको लगातार जो है सरकार उसमें बढ़ोतरी करती रही ताकि वो अट्रैक्टिव रहें या वो ऐसे रहें जिससे कि किसान जो है उसको अपनी जो है फसल है उसकी लागत तो मिले ही मिले ताकि उसको प्रोत्साहन भी हो। और उसका एक जो कैलकुलेशन का एक जो तरीका है वो ये रहा है कि तकरीबन जो कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन है उसके 1.5 गुना उसको जो है MSP रखी जाए ताकि उसको जो है एक वाजिब दाम तो मिले ही मिले, साथ में उसको कुछ जो है उसका फ़ायदा भी मिले जो वो कृषि क्षेत्र में जो है लागत जो आ रही है उसकी। और साथ साथ जो आपने बोला जो कि खरीफ सीज़न, क्योंकि कल ही आपने देखा होगा जो मॉनसून की भी प्रेडिक्शन है कि अबव नॉर्मल रहेगा, खासकर ऐसे इलाकों में जो कि ज़्यादा हमारे जो सेंट्रल इंडिया का एरिया है जो कि ग्रेन बाउल भी बोलते हैं हम लोग, तो इस वजह से भी ये एक्सपेक्टेड था क्योंकि ये डिसीजन कि ये आएगा ही। और जो MSP में लगातार चाहे धान हो उसके साथ साथ जो आप देखेंगे जो खरीफ सीजन में खासकर जो दालों के लिए होता है ऑयल सीड्स या दलहन या तिलहन दोनों बातें हैं, साथ साथ जो मोटा अनाज जिस पे भी बहुत फोकस है, तो उनके भी जो न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य है उनमें भी इजाफा किया गया है।
Siddharth, when we see post-Green Revolution, there has been a lot of focus on wheat and paddy in many states. Now, when the government gives incentives like these, as in oilseeds, pulses, and ragi particularly, millets generally, but ragi in this case, do you think this push towards incentivization of growing oilseeds, pulses, and millets, it's good for the soil and good for people, good for the farmer, good for the consumer, because you'll get nutrition from multiple sources, and if you grow pulses, it's easier to fix nitrogen in the soil.
That also, plus see why we have started these missions for oil seeds and pulses, because to be self reliant and self sufficient. So, and this was announced in the budget for 2025 that India aims to get self sufficient both in oil seeds as well as pulses, because we are big importers and we are huge consumers of both these commodities. And the problem is, especially with the pulses, I would say, and the same is true for oil seeds. What the problem is that there are very few producers in the world. So even for pulses, and it is something typical to India that we are very high consumers of pulses, especially because it's also a big source of protein for vegetarians.
Right.
And also what the other thing you said for paddy and
we usually focus on wheat and paddy.
Yeah, wheat. And so why we want to also shift our focus, because we also want our farmers to diversify. There's too much of over dependence, and what has also led to, if you look at for example production of rice, you see in Punjab there is overemphasis on production of rice, and what has that led to? That has led to very steep fall in water levels in the state of Punjab and also Haryana also to an extent. So I think that is also one reason. Plus there is overabundance of both wheat as well as rice. Our grain, our warehouses are full with storage facilities are full as far as wheat and rice are concerned. So there is also effort to diversify and also give farmers good remunerative prices. That is why, so that they are encouraged to diversify and shift from wheat and rice.
And rice is a water-guzzling crop.
It is not only water-guzzling, plus it is also causing loss to our soil, and as you said also. And the other thing is that we need, in a big way, we need oil seeds and pulses. We are huge importers of. So that also, if our production in these areas goes up, also helps, not only helps farmers, it also helps us save a lot of forex.
Exactly.
आइए इसी खबर पर एक सवाल मैं और पूछना चाहूँगा आपसे। मैं ये समझना चाहूँगा कि श्री अन्न, यानी जिसे मोटे अनाज के रूप में हम कल तक जाना करते थे, वह हम श्री अन्न के रूप में इसकी ब्रांडिंग नए सिरे से कर रहे हैं। इसका मुख्य रूप से कह लें भारतीय बाजार ही है, या वैश्विक बाजार में भी जो इनमें कह लें कि गुणात्मक पौष्टिकता इनमें है, उसका वैश्विक बाजार बन सकता है, और हमें उस दिशा में इसकी मार्केटिंग में उन चीज़ों को जोड़ के जो वैश्विक बाजार है वहाँ तलाश करनी चाहिए?
नहीं, देखिए मनोज जी, जब आप श्री अन्न या मोटे अनाज की जो बात कर रहे हैं, या अंग्रेजी में जिसको मिलेट्स बोला जा रहा है, और मुझे याद आता है कि बहुत पहले जब हम लोग अपने घर में ये बातें होती थी, बाजरे के बारे में सुना जाता था, ज्वार, जौ, तो ये चीज़ें धीरे धीरे ऐसा प्रचलन आया कि धीरे धीरे गेहूं ने इन सब चीज़ों को रिप्लेस कर दिया। और तो अभी दोबारा जब से प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने, मुझे लगता है इसमें काफ़ी जो है लीडरशिप ली, और उन्होंने जो है एक फोकस हुआ सरकार ने, मुझे याद आता है 2023 था, आज से 2 साल पहले, जब मिलेट्स पे एक बहुत बड़ी कॉन्फ्रेंस की प्रधानमंत्री, और वो साल ही डिक्लेयर किया हमने मिलेट्स का। तो कहीं ना कहीं भारत ने पूरी दुनिया में जागरूकता इसके बारे में बढ़ाई है, और ये आज आप देखेंगे कि मिलेट्स का इंडिया में डिफरेंट वेराइटीज़ ऑफ मिलेट्स का बहुत ज़्यादा प्रोडक्शन हो रहा है, प्राइस बहुत अच्छी मिल रही है लोगों को, और ना केवल हिंदुस्तान में इसका कंजम्पशन का प्रचलन बढ़ रहा है, लोगों में जागरूकता बढ़ी है, बल्कि दुनिया भर में, जो बात आपने कही, दुनिया भर में भी इसके कंजम्पशन, इसके जो फ़ायदे हैं उनको लेके लोगों के अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा उत्सुकता, जागरूकता दोनों है, और यही वजह है कि इसका एक्सपोर्ट तो बढ़ ही रहा है हिंदुस्तान में, डोमेस्टिकली वी आर कंज्यूमिंग इन अ बिग वे, और साथ साथ लोगों को अच्छी प्राइस मिल रही है।
And when we hosted a lunch at the United Nations once, it was a millet meal all the way. And
even in G20.
Exactly. In G20 also we promoted millet meals.
यानी श्रोताओं, आपके लिए खबर ये है कि किसान यदि आप हैं तो समर्थन मूल्य तो कुछ फसलों का मिला, लेकिन दूरगामी फसल चक्र में आपको मोटे अनाज के रूप में, जिसे हम जानते हैं ज्वार बाजरा, जिसे अब हम श्री अन्न के रूप में जाना करेंगे, उनके खेती पर भी अपने लिए समय और साधन जरूर लगाएं। आइए
मनोज जी, अगर मैं एक बात कहूं कि मिलेट इसलिए भी ज़रूरी है किसान के लिए क्योंकि उसे कम पानी में भी उगाया जा सकता है।
बिल्कुल।
और उसमें वो न्यूट्रिशन, माइक्रो न्यूट्रिशन होता है जो वीट और पैडी में नहीं होता। सो इट्स अ विन विन फॉर एवरीबॉडी।
आइए आगे बढ़ें। केंद्रीय मंत्रिमंडल ने महाराष्ट्र और मध्य प्रदेश में भारतीय रेलवे में 2 मल्टी ट्रैकिंग परियोजनाओं को भी मंजूरी दे दी है। इनसे यात्रा सुविधाओं में सुधार के साथ लॉजिस्टिक लागत और तेल आयात में कमी आएगी। इसके अलावा मंत्रिमंडलीय समिति ने डिजाइन, निर्माण, वित्त, संचालन, हस्तांतरण मोड में राष्ट्रीय राजमार्ग संख्या 67 पर आंध्र प्रदेश में 3,653 करोड़ रुपए से अधिक की लागत से 108 किलोमीटर से अधिक लंबाई के 4 लेन बड्डवेल नेल्लोर गलियारे के निर्माण योजना को भी मंजूरी दे दी है। और अब घरेलू शेयर बाजार, जहां लगातार दूसरे सत्र में आज गिरावट हुई। सीमित दायरे में कारोबार हुआ और अंत में बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का सेंसेक्स 239 अंक यानी 0.29% घाटे के साथ 81,312 पर बंद हुआ। उधर नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का निफ्टी 50 74 अंक यानी 0.3% घाटे के साथ 24,752 दर्ज हुआ। विस्तारित बाजार की ओर चलें तो छोटी और मझोली कंपनियों का प्रदर्शन सेंसेक्स और निफ्टी पैक की तुलना में थोड़ा सा बेहतर दिखा है। एक और बीएसई मिड कैप इंडेक्स में 0.2% से अधिक की गिरावट हुई है। उधर स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स 0.5% लाभ के साथ बंद हुआ।
All right, let's look at the stocks in detail now. The benchmark domestic equity indices ended in negative territory for the second straight session in a range-bound trade today. The 30-share index at the Bombay Stock Exchange Sensex dropped 239 points or 0.29% to close at 81,312. The National Stock Exchange Nifty 50 declined 74 points or 0.3% to settle at 24,752. Meanwhile, the broader market indices at the BSE ended mixed. The mid-cap index slipped over 0.2%, while the small-cap index advanced 0.5%. In the Sensex index, 20 out of 30 companies ended lower. In the top laggards, ITC slid over 3.1%, IndusInd Bank lost almost 2%, and Nestle India shed almost 1.8%. Among the top gainers, Bajaj Finance rose over 1%, Bharti Airtel added more than 0.6%, and ICICI Bank advanced over 0.4%. In sectoral indices at the BSE, 13 out of 21 sectors edged down. In the top laggards, FMCG declined over 1.3%, metal as well as auto both slipped over 0.6% each, and consumer durables dipped almost 0.6%. Among the top gainers, telecommunication jumped 1.4%, industrials climbed over 0.5%, and capital goods added over 0.3%. The overall market breadth at the BSE was positive as shares of 2,022 companies advanced, shares of 1,928 companies declined, while shares of 156 companies remained unchanged. At the National Stock Exchange, 51 companies hit their 52-week high, while 17 companies hit their 52-week low. So, Siddharth, once Sensex touched 86, then back to 82. It is the nature of markets to be fragile. They are sensitive to sentiments, but our fundamentals are strong. How fragile are we right now?
See, Lalima, I don't think we are fragile in any way, especially our macroeconomic fundamentals. Economy continues to be robust. If you look at the immediate parameters, you look at inflation is very much under control. We are now close to 3%, and RBI obviously has already cut rates twice. Now we have repo rate around 6%. Plus, government has already taken good steps in the budget, especially cutting the income tax slabs, releasing a lot of money in the hands of, and which has now started coming in the hands of people since the beginning of this financial year. So I would say, and especially the prediction on monsoons, I think the only worrying data that we have got in recent times is the core sector data and the index of industrial production. In that too also we have got the data for one single month, that is the April. So I think just the beginning of the year. So I think this also we would see things turning around. And even if you look overall sentiment, you look, India continues to be one of the fastest growing economies in the world we rest assured that we'll clock a 6% plus growth even in the current financial year, and also the financial year that has just ended, because we'll be getting the data for quarter 4, that is Jan-March on 30th. So I think, and that should be close to 7%. So we are assured of a 6%, 6.5% growth for the last fiscal as well as for the current financial year. All the estimates are saying should be around 6.5%. Yes, if this is our domestic but you look at the things which are impacting our sentiments is one is obviously once the FII started withdrawing, they have still not started. There is still nothing that we can conclude that they have started coming back or they are still now streaming in back. The second is obviously the huge impact after President Trump came in and he announced these on trade tariffs, and there is still no resolution to that, though he has put a block on those till July 10th. So we have time. We are negotiating. So I think the first cut today also there is a news that we should have a first cut by the end of June. We should have something in with the US. So I think, and plus you see the Israel-Gaza conflict going on. Recently we had our own issues with Pakistan which came up. So I think Ukraine-Russia continues. So I think those are issues, plus what happens to US economy, because there's a lot of disruption happening. He's been announcing tariffs with China, European Union, though they're still not taken effect. But a lot of things are uncertain. So I think those are things which are impacting the Indian stock markets and our sentiments. So I think, but yes, to say what I would say, we are out of the worst. The markets have climbed up. Most of the good stocks, you would say, have gone up some have gone up almost 40%, 50% also. But I would say the bottom would be 20-25%. And there is nothing for Indian investor to worry, or even for FIIs who are coming into India. So only thing is, yes, in the short term, I see market to be broadly range bound. It should stay here, and there would be some days of profit booking. So one should wait and watch and identify his own stocks and put in the money.
श्रोताओं को हम जानकारी देना चाहेंगे आज रुपए की क्या स्थिति रही। अंतर बैंकिंग विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में $1 की तुलना में रुपया आज 2 पैसे कमजोर हुआ, 85 रुपए 36 पैसे के स्तर पर बंद हुआ। उधर दुनिया की अन्य 6 प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर की स्थिति दर्शाने वाला सूचकांक अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार में समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक 99.64 पर चल रहा था। और आइए अब हम चले वैश्विक बाजारों की ओर। सबसे पहले एशियाई शेयर बाजार, जहां आज मिला जुला रुख दिखा है। दक्षिण कोरिया के कोस्पी सूचकांक में निवेशकों द्वारा की गई लिवाली से 1.2% की वृद्धि हुई। सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स इंडेक्स 0.4% लाभ के साथ बंद हुआ। उधर बिकवाली के दबाव में हांगकांग का हिंग सेंग 0.5% घाटे में रहा। चीन के शंघाई कंपोजिट इंडेक्स और जापान के निक्केई 225 सूचकांक में कोई खास बदलाव नहीं देखा गया और ये अपने पूर्व स्तर के आसपास बंद हुए। यूरोपीय बाजार की ओर चलें तो ताजा समाचार मिलने तक, यानी समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक, प्रमुख बाजारों में नरमी दिख रही थी। जर्मनी का डेक्स 0.4% नीचे चल रहा था, वहीं फ्रांस का कैक 40 और लंदन का फुट्सी 100 दोनों सूचकांक 0.1% घाटे के साथ कारोबार कर रहे थे।
All right, look at the US markets now. Well, US stocks surged on Tuesday as investor risk appetite was buoyed by US President Donald Trump's latest tariff respite and an unexpected jump in consumer confidence. A broad rally sent all three major indices higher, with strength in the AI-related Magnificent Seven group of momentum stocks. Nasdaq Composite soared over 2.4%, S&P 500 climbed over 2%, and Dow Jones Industrial Average gained almost 1.8%. On the economic front, consumer confidence rebounded in May after 5 straight months of declines. The Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index rose 12.3 points in May to 98, up from April's 85.7. Its lowest reading since May 2020. Meanwhile, expectations index, which is a measure of America's short-term expectations for the income, business conditions and the job market, jumped 17.4 points to 72.8, but remained below 80, which can signal a recession ahead. So that US economy has been a bit of a puzzle, because when we said technically they are in recession, Nobody knows did they go into recession or not? No one knows. Yet we know inflation is very high there. Here it's again a mixed bag, expectation index and versus confidence index. How do you view and analyze the US economy?
Lalima, as you said, the word puzzle, I think since President Trump has taken over, I think it's a puzzle every day. So the only certainty is that the puzzle will continue. So, or this uncertainty is going to continue. So, I think since you said about investor confidence, sentiment, as well as the consumers, I think the problem with the US is if he's announcing or going ahead with these kind of tariff restrictions, inflation is bound to go up in US. And what kind of impact or disruption it would have on the US economy. I think the Fed is still waiting for more data because they are still not been able to conclude. And what happens to these tariff announcements that he has made? If they're able to conclude, negotiate tariff rates with China, with EU, or with big trading partners like India. So I think all this is something which we will still have to wait for at least 2-3 months because the negotiations are going on. And I think still in US we are still not getting clear cut direction or the data which is coming in is, I think one day we get a positive data, the other set of data is slightly adverse.
Yes.
So I think there is still nothing, there is still a lack of direction. Plus I think that lack of direction is also emanating from President Trump's announcements. Every day there is a new announcement. You would have seen the latest announcement was warning Apple, if you produce outside US, if Apple phones are produced in India, he would impose a 25. So I think those kind of things are impacting sentiments. Yes. So I think we will have, I still feel at least another quarter we will see things settling down and we getting some kind of a picture which would be more definitive in nature.
Yeah, I mean the tariff first it touched 245% for China and then there was a climb down. So why go up and down? Are these utterances bad for the global markets?
Obviously, they are. If they were not bad, then why would the world perceive it like that? The sentiments are being impacted because of that. And if you see, that is why a lot of even we are on the guard. We are like you see, there was a news item even today. Our own Federation of Exporters Association, which has said that in the current financial year, our exports total, both goods and services, are expected to touch about $1 trillion. And what the important message that is coming from there is that exporters or people outside, with the orders that Indian manufacturers are getting from new geographies, plus new items. People are shifting not only from China, they want to shift from even US importers. I'm saying US importers. So, for example, one of my friends was telling me that there is now a demand for the products that are used in the pet industry. Articles used for pets. So there is a demand in India if we can produce. So there is a shift from China to India by US importers. So those kind of things are happening. Newer markets, people looking for diversification. So all that is happening. Lot of churning is happening currently. So I think all this is obviously not only impacting growth, business, trade, everything.
And not to forget, first time in 100 years, Moody's downgraded the credit rating from AAA to A1 for US.
Yeah, because of their higher debt. But I think higher debt for US is something which is been factored in, and they have been a high debt country.
Yes, yes.
आइए खबरों का सिलसिला आगे बढ़ाएं। श्रीलंका से भारत को होने वाले निर्यात में वर्ष 2025 के पहले 4 महीनों में लगभग 40% की वृद्धि हुई है। ये एक वर्ष पहले के $239 मिलियन की तुलना में $334 मिलियन तक पहुंच गया है। श्रीलंका के निर्यात विकास बोर्ड के अनुसार अमेरिका के बाद भारत श्रीलंका का दूसरा सबसे बड़ा निर्यातक देश बन गया है। अप्रैल 2025 में श्रीलंका से कुल निर्यात वर्ष दर वर्ष 12% से बढ़कर $983 मिलियन तक पहुंच गया है।
All right. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri today met United States Under Secretary Jeffrey Kessler to advance cooperation in critical and emerging technologies. The two also discussed the early convening of the India-US Strategic Trade Dialogue to deepen tech and trade collaboration. And moving on, India's industrial production growth. measured by the Index of Industrial Production, IIP as we call it, slowed to 2.7% in April as compared to growth rate of 3% in March, according to data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Among the three major components of IIP, manufacturing rose 3.4%, electricity generation grew by 1.1%, while mining output contracted marginally by 0.2% in April, reversing 0.4% growth seen in the previous month. The corresponding growth rates of IIP as per use-based classification in April 2025 over April 2024 stood at 20.3% in capital goods, 4.1% in intermediate goods, 4% in infrastructure or construction goods, and 6.4% in consumer durables. Meanwhile, consumer non-durables contracted by 1.7%, and primary goods also saw a marginal contraction of 0.4% during the month. Siddharth, lots of statistics in this story. How do you analyze?
See, index of industrial production, it was expected after we saw the core sector data last week. So there was a huge fall there also. It was about 0.5% growth over last corresponding year. So I think, and 40% of that is index of industrial production comes out of core sector, the core 8 core industries. So, and the fall is very evident in manufacturing, electricity and mining. But the heartening part is that we still continue to see a good growth in capital goods. So I think that is some plant machinery basically. So new capacities are being added. And what I also expect after the rate cut by RBI, the two rate cuts, so they would now be taken, because there is always a lag in once the RBI does a rate cut for lag effect. So I think now that would be getting transmitted. Plus the fiscal steps taken by the government in the budget, other announcement by the government in the budget to push productivity linked incentives. So I think all that plus a low inflation. So I see demand as well as manufacturing picking up in the coming months, and this is 1 month data, so I don't see this as a worry point now.
आइए खबरों का सिलसिला आगे बढ़ाएं.
All right, crude oil prices rose today. Brent crude was trading over 0.8%, up at $64.63 per barrel. WTI crude was also trading over 0.8%, up at $61.42 per barrel when reports last came in. Said that we import a lot of oil. 80% of our oil is imported. We are moving towards renewable energy, and that will take some more time to settle down. We've come a long way, but still a long way to go. At $64.63 per barrel, shouldn't India be happy?
Very, 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 very good price for us. Anything around 70 and below 70 is very good. But yes, 64 is something which is good, because if the crude oil prices go below a certain level, obviously they also indicate a fall in demand,
yes.
A sluggish demand. So I think 64 is very, 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 very happy situation, and I think a situation where consumers can also expect some good news from oil companies in terms of cut in prices. And obviously I think government will also come in and chip in through some rise in excise duties, which they have already done once.
Yes.
So I think current level of crude oil prices are good for India, and obviously because as you said, we are huge importers, so we have a huge forex use on crude oil imports.
आइए आगे बढ़ें, चलें सर्राफा बाजार. सर्राफा बाजार में आज सोने और चांदी की चमक समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक तेज दिख रही थी. अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक भारत में 24 कैरेट सोने का मूल्य 0.46% बढ़त के साथ 96,040 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम के स्तर पर कारोबार कर रहा था. वहीं चांदी 0.27% बढ़त के साथ 97,990 रुपए प्रति किलो के स्तर पर कारोबार कर रही थी. एमसीएक्स में अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक जून आपूर्ति वाला सोना 0.41% बढ़त के साथ 95,532 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम पर था. जुलाई आपूर्ति वाली चांदी 97,784 रुपए प्रति किलो पर चल रही थी. और बस यहीं पर श्रोताओं की ओर से सिद्धार्थ जी, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
थैंक यू.
And friends, before we close, here's a reminder of the headlines. Cabinet approves increase in MSP for 14 Kharif crops for marketing season 2025-26. Cabinet also approves continuation of interest subvention component under modified interest subvention scheme for farmers. And benchmark domestic equity indices end in negative territory for the second straight session. Sensex slips over 200 points. Nifty closes at 24,752. Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of Market Mantra. This is myself, Lalima Aneja Dang, and my co-anchor Manoj Pathak signing off. Namaskar.
Market Mantra.